Hello, everyone. So for this lesson, my main priority was trying to accommodate students A and B because they weren't particularly strong readers. So in order to compensate from this, I tried to give them as many visuals and hand gestures as possible to help kind of reinforce the information that we were going to read about within our text. And I also try to add a little kinesthetic learning and with cutting and using the gestures I mentioned earlier. And it turned out pretty all right. Student A, which was diagnosed with multiple disabilities and autism, responded pretty well to it. He was enthusiastic about the whole lesson about the tectonic boundaries and he participated the most out of the two students and even demonstrated a bit of a interest whenever we were talking about some of the natural phenomenon that occurred due to these boundaries moving. And he even produced some pretty high quality work with the shapes cut out for our concept map that I made for them to follow along and to refer to in later lessons. And he was even able to guess some of the boundaries that we were reading about whenever the time came around to do that. And overall, he did pretty good. He didn't use his text to speech to communicate his wants and desires, but he did howl a bit, and depending on how his facial reactions were, it gave me an idea that he was at least following along. Student B is also in the multiple disabilities category, but he was a bit more difficult to work with since he wasn't enthusiastic about this whole reading activity. It was only until later that I found out that student B was a hand over hand student or learning student, so he learned better with what's it called? Putting his hands in motion in a position and or motion that he could perform the task himself. And I feel like that's something I should probably incorporate onto the next lesson if I ever do anything with kinesthetics again. So, anyways, he was a bit communicating with him was a bit different since he mainly communicated with me via pointing or just presenting some kind of noise whenever he wanted to select something. I went for a more point out the option and wait for a reaction kind of approach with him, and helped him out with the task instead of just positioning or putting him in a position that he would be able to operate by himself, which I feel was a mistake on my part and a missed opportunity because, he tends to his hands tend to shake very often. So I was really worried that maybe if I had him work with scissors, he might get anxious and worry that he might cut up the material more than necessary. Well, lesson learned. And he also wasn't very enthusiastic about an activity that involved reading. So whenever I demonstrated what pieces corresponded with the section of the tectonic plates reading that we were doing, he would rip it up, actually, and means in an attempt to provoke me, but it didn't work, and it ended up all right. We were gluing stuff anyways, so even if he did rip it, it wasn't really much of a big loss for the activity. His concept map came out all right, and the kinesthetic aspect of including hand gestures and kind of helping them distinguish between the gestures and the different pictures was a good touch. he was able to get the information and understood what key points were important with them. Like whenever we were talking about a boundary or an intersection, he was able to tell the difference between the moving boundaries. And no, whenever it was we were talking about the moving boundaries or specific place within the boundaries, and I feel like that went pretty well within the lesson. The well, the aim, I guess, or what I wanted to achieve was for them to at least memorize or gain knowledge to associate those tectonic phrases with certain movements. And my target score was about a 75%, and the students were able to reach it no problem. Well, student A went a bit above and beyond, but other than that, I feel like both of the students were capable of understanding the lesson. My only real regrets, well, some of the main regrets that I had with this lesson is that I didn't particularly take enough time to actually go over the vocabulary words that I initially wanted to address throughout the reading, because well, I only had like 20 minutes to deliver the lesson, and I felt like reading the entire text might have been a bit too much for them. But well, we were able to get through it. But that's probably one of my only regrets with the lesson. I really feel like those the vocabulary words would have been a key aspect to the lesson, and any kind of future lessons that we would have with studying the boundary movements. So, yeah, if I could change anything else, I'd say I'd probably add some. Well, not add, but maybe present them with another video that maybe didn't have many scientific words, phrases, or basically just be founded on an interview based on what scientists have to say. Maybe a more simple example would have sufficed, with more animated movements as opposed to diagrams. Well, on second thought, the diagrams actually did work well during the concept map portion of the lesson. I also wish I could have provided them with a better concept map, I guess, but that's more of a personal gripe of mine. Looking back on it, having a 20-minute lesson go over this entire text would have been a bit much for these kids, and I should have really broken it down a bit more, like maybe 3 sections of 4 over a period of 3 days. Well, considering that their IEPs share the similarity that they need to get used to matching objects, or at least selecting them of their own volition without like any kind of outside influence, I tried my best, though the approach didn't show as many results as I hoped it would have. I feel like the students at least got something out of it. The graphic organizers also are good reminders for them, I feel, though maybe presenting the gestures later on to accompany them will still be necessary until the kids get a hang of it. Perhaps turning the gestures into like a kind of game, so that way whenever like they hear a certain boundary movement or a place involving the boundaries, they'll be able to associate it with that movement, especially if it's in the form of a game. That way they can have a bit of fun and well, move around a bit more, because they often get bored. Well, students often get bored whenever we just present them with sitting activities and writing. And well, these kids are smart, and they're capable of typing out their answers. So maybe I should ask them to type a bit more. Well, perhaps an option of like having them type their answers out would be more beneficial than having a discussion, but well, that might rob them of an opportunity to actually, well, express their thoughts in their preferred method. So maybe that isn't a bad thing about it. So, yep. That's around all I really had to say about it. I would have liked to focus more about on the vocabulary words I wanted to utilize in there to establish a foundation for future lessons, or at least help them connect concepts a bit better. I mean, the hand gesture movements were okay for this section, but maybe not having them be over reliant is something I might want to look into the future, and maybe make some procedures so they can be a bit more self-sufficient if they ever get into a situation like this. Maybe having an audiobook read this to them might be a bit better, and then just pausing it on occasion to help explain what they're reading about might have been good as well. They followed along with their fingers, and that was well, effective. They tended to skip some of the words that they didn't understand by just like moving their finger a bit faster than normal, but that was okay. We could, well, it was okay, but in the future I would have liked to go over any kind of words that they might not know, just help them build upon their vocabulary a little bit, and perhaps adding some more common words into the vocabulary might have been a good idea, but maybe for like a pre-lesson or maybe a bell work activity that might work better, just to try not to overwhelm them, or maybe have like a kind of reference list or definitions chart for them to work with while they're reading might work a little bit. And for the definition page I might develop in the near future, I think I might go with the same approach of providing them with both a short textual definition along with a picture to demonstrate what it's referring to. Well, yeah, those are things to think about whenever I do this lesson again. So, yeah, have a nice evening.